bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Have the good intentions. I ask Allah to make this easy for myself and for you. I won't make this introduction long, insha'Allah ta'ala. So the plan is to read through this mukhtaSar, the summary of obligatory knowledge. I will translate it as literally as possible. And so, insha'Allah, we will have a blend of religious and linguistic benefits. Although learning Arabic language is a religious science, it is a religious science. So, those of you who are studying Arabic, feel free to ask. It's okay, I don't mind, inshallah. But if you're advanced, go ahead, ask what you want to ask. If I can benefit you, I'll do so, inshallah ta'ala. And if you're following along in your Arabic text, that's good. If any of you are reading along in your English, that's very good. Don't feel even discouraged about that. It's very, very good. Have your English copy and read along. And I'm not going to even try to say what they said in the English. And I'm not in any way refuting anything that's in the English. I'm just going to translate it as literally as possible so we can get some special benefits, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So you also can take your notes. So the author says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman, the one whose mercy is for believers and non-believers in this life. Ar-Rahim, the one whose mercy is for believers. So Ar-Rahman has something extra in its meaning because it has an extra letter. They come from the same root, which is what? Ra, ha, mim. Ra, ha, mim. So they come from the same root. You know that most Arabic words have 3 root letters. So they're coming from the same root, and one has an extra letter, then the one with the extra letter has an extra meaning. Let's count those letters here. Ar-Rahman, 1, Alif 1, Lam 2, Ra 3, Ha 4, Mim 5, Alif 6, Noon 7. Ar-Rahim, Alif 1, Lam 2, Ra 3, Ha 4, Ya 5, Mim 6. So 1 letter short of Ar-Rahman. For your information, you count that Alif in Ar-Rahman, although you don't write it. If you were to write the word Ar-Rahman without any harakat or anything, you do not write the alif. If you see it written, it's wrong, actually. It should not be written with the alif. But you pronounce that alif. The author said, Muqaddimah, introduction. Because Qaf Dal Mim, something that is advanced, something that is put forward, like a qadam, like a foot is put forward. Al-Muqaddimah, the introduction of the book. He says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdu, the praise. Lillahi is for God, for Allah. Verbal praise, alhamdu, verbal praise. Lillahi Rabbil Alameen is for Allah or due to Allah. Rabbil Alameen, the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Rabb is the owner, Malik. Rabbil Alameen, owner of Al-Alameen. Al-Alameen, Al-Alameen, the worlds. For now, we'll keep going. I don't want to stop there. But if you have a question later, feel free to ask. Al-Hayy, the living, or the alive. That's an adjective. It's not a verb. Al-Hayy, the living or the alive. Al-Qayyum, I don't believe that there's a word for translating Al-Qayyum. Al-Qayyum is a name of Allah that's only for Allah. It's a name exclusive to him. It's not permissible to use it for anyone other than God. Al-Qayyum. So the root letters are Qaf, Waw, Meen. So it comes from Qiyam. Al-Qayyum comes from the word Qiyam. Qiyam means standing, or it means being, existing. So Al-Qayyum as the name of Allah, some said it means the one whose existence is everlasting. Some said it means the one with confirmed existence. Some said it means the one who controls, who manages all the creations. Al-Mudabbir, the manager. So the praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the living, Al-Qayyum, the manager, li jami'il makhluqin, for all of the created ones, or all of the created things, or all of the created beings. Li jami'il makhluqin, wa ba'd. Wa ba'd, usually they'll translate that as thereafter. Ba'd means after. Wow, that's and. Usually, we'll see whenever it's useful, we'll see what does wow mean in different spots, inshallah. Wa ba'd, and thereafter. So now he wants to start. What did he do? He started with the name of Allah, which is the habit of the scholars, and he praised Allah Ta'ala. And in some copies, there's salah on the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This mukhtaSar in Arabic has some various versions. That's normal. There's nothing abnormal about that. Because a scholar in his lifetime, he would review. Also, sometimes those who convey from the scholar, sometimes their copies vary for a reason or another. فَهَذَا mukhtaSar. So this is a summary, a mukhtaSar. هذا, this, فَهَذَا, so this is mukhtaSar, a summary. جامع, inclusive, gathering. جامع, gathering, collecting. One who collects and gathers. So this summary is described as a gatherer. Gatherer of what? لِأَغْلَبِ الضَّرُورِيَّات, for most of the necessities, for most of the necessary matters, most of the daruri things. لِأَغْلَبِ الضَّرُورِيَّات, for most of the necessities. Which necessities? Allati, those which la yajuzu li kulli mukallafin jahluha. Those which it is not permissible for any accountable one their ignorance. those which allati, those necessary matters, allati la yajuzu, is not permissible, li kulli mukallaf, for every accountable. You know, kul means every or all. But I would argue that even here it could be translated as any. It's not permissible for any mukallaf, for any countable person, jahluha, its ignorance. Jahluha, their ignorance, the ignorance of those necessary things. Ha, here, this pronoun ha, jahluha, refers back to the daruriyat, the necessary things, the ignorance of the necessary things. لا يجوز لكل مكلف جهلها. It's not permissible for any accountable person the ignorance of those necessary things. So here, this word yajuz, that's a verb. La yajuzu, it's not permissible. When we translate it into English, it doesn't really come out as a verb. So jaza yajuzu, jaza, to be, yani, he was permissible. Jaza, he was lawful, he was permitted. The thing itself, yani, the thing itself is permitted, not the one who's allowed to do something. The thing is permitted, was permitted in the past. Jaza yajuzu, it is permitted. The thing itself is permitted. That's a verb. In present tense, la yajuzu, but what's the doer of this verb? Every doing needs a doer. A verb is a doing. Every doing needs a doer. So the doer of the verb yajuz is jahl, ignorance. La yajuzu jahluha, their ignorance is not permissible. So the thing that's not permissible is the ignorance, the jahl. فهذا مختصر جامع لأغلب الضروريات. So this is a summary, gathering of most of the necessary matters. التي, those which لا يجوز لكل مكلف جهلها, not permissible is for any accountable person their ignorance, the ignorance of those necessary things. What are those? Min al-i'tiqad, from the conviction. Why did he start there at al-i'tiqad, the conviction? Because that's most important. Wa masaila, and cases. Masail, cases, very literally means questions. Questions, but it's not a question here, it's a case. Wa masaila fiqhiyah, and fiqh cases. So amongst the conviction and fiqh cases, not the fiqh cases. This is indefinite here. Wa masaila fiqhiyah, and some fiqh cases, and fiqh cases. As if the shaykh there signals to that it's not all obligatory. Every single thing. What's obligatory on you, each individual? Everything that's in mukhtaSar? Not exactly. What's obligatory on you, each one of you and I, is whatever it is we have to do and whatever it is we want to do. That's the knowledge that's obligatory on us to know. If you have to do something, then you have to learn its rules. If you want to do something, then you have to learn its rules. It will be obligatory on you to learn the rules of what's optional before you do it. It's just not obligatory on you to do it. So don't mix that. وَمَسَائِلَ فِقْهِيَّةٍ, and fiqh cases. What fiqh cases? مِنَ الطَّهَارَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ, from the purification to the Hajj, the pilgrimage. So look, how did the shaykh summarize that there? This is a summary. So that's a lot of information there, all bundled into a few words. مِنَ الطَّهَارَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ, from the purification to the Hajj. So you know that means starting from, in the fiqh cases, purification. Then what's right after that? Prayer. Then what's right after that? Zakah, usually in the books. So after prayer, go to zakah. Then what's after that? Fasting. Then what's after that? Hajj. So he didn't say all of that, he summarized it. And you knew it, and that's why this is a mukhtaSar, a summary. مِنَ الطَّهَارَةِ إِلَى الْحَجِّ, from the purification to the Hajj. وَشَيْءٍ مِّنْ أَحْكَامِ الْمُعَامَلَاتِ, and shay, and something, a thing, from the rules of the dealings, the interactions. وَشَيْءٍ, and a thing, that's indefinite. So something, that means a little bit. So it's obligatory to learn a little bit of those rules, enough for you to operate. But very precisely, you have to learn whatever it is that you have to do or want to do. وَشَيْءٍ, and something, min, from, or among, أحكام المعاملات, the rules of al-mu'amalat, the dealings or transactions. So perhaps very literally, al-mu'amalat means interactions. That's why I like the word dealings for mu'amalat more than contracts and more than transactions. I find it more general, dealings. And it has that mutual meaning, dealing. وَشَيْءٍ مِّنْ أَحْكَامِ الْمُعَامَلَاتِ, and something from the rules of the dealings. عَلَى مَذْهَبِ الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي. على, on, يعني according to, madhabi, the madhab, the school. School doesn't mean building here in this context. If you want, look up the word school in the dictionary. Not for this lesson, just for yourself. So don't imagine a building, a school building. The school of Imam al-Shafi'i. School means a group of people who have the same opinion. The Imam of this school, the leader of this school, is Imam al-Shafi'i. Al-Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam, here it means leader. The word Imam has many meanings. The letters Hamza, Mim, Mim in Arabic, Hamza, Mim, Mim have many meanings. The word Imam itself has many meanings. Here it means the leader. وَشَيْءٍ مِّنْ أَحْكَامِ الْمُعَامَلَاتِ, and something of the rules of the dealings. عَلَى مَذْهَبِ الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي, according to the madhab, the school of Imam, the leader, يعني the Imam, Imam al-Shafi'i. Imam, the word Imam became like a title, so it would be better to keep it in Arabic here. Imam al-Shafi'i. But some people, when they write it out in English, they keep the word al-Imam al-Shafi'i when they write it out in English. For myself, I don't. I treat that as a title. So, like in English, you would say judge so-and-so, officer so-and-so, even for the kuffar, reverend so-and-so. You don't say the judge so-and-so. So if it were me, I would just write Imam al-Shafi'i. But if you like to write al-Imam, then you may do so. According to the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i. So real quick, back up to the word madhab. So madhab, the root letters are dhal, ha, ba. Dhahaba or dhahab means going, like going away. Dhahab, leaving. So a madhab very literally is a place to where you go. A place to where you go. A place of going. That's a madhab. So because a person goes according to his opinion, or he goes wherever his opinion is, because one goes where his opinion is, then an opinion can be called a madhab, a place of going. So the madhab of Imam al-Shafi'i is where Imam al-Shafi'i went. And then those who agreed with him went with him. So they're all in the madhab of al-Shafi'i. The madhab of Abu Hanifa, that's where Abu Hanifa went. And the madhab of Malik is where he went, etc. Not a literal place. It means their opinion. An opinion here doesn't mean that they're opinionated. It means their legal opinions. They're qualified legal opinions. Thumma, then, bayanu ma'asi al-qalb, clarification or clarity of ma'asi al-qalb, the sins of the heart. Then clarity or clarification of the sins of the heart. So what happens there? He says, what are those things you can't be ignorant about? I'tiqad, conviction, and masail fiqhiyya, fiqh judgments, cases. What fiqh cases? From purification to hajj, and some of the rules of dealings. In this book, it's according to the madhab of al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i. Then this summary that gathers all of this also gathers, or there is in it, bayanu ma'asi al-qalb, clarification of the sins of the heart. Wal jawarih, and the organs or the limbs. The organs or the limbs. We could do some cross-referencing there for the words organs and the words limbs. Let's see what's the best. Right now, I don't remember. I did do some looking into that, but I don't recall right now. Kal-lisan, like the tongue. Kal-lisan, that kaf means like. Kal-lisan, like the tongue. Wa ghayrihi, and other than it. Like the tongue and other than it, other than the tongue, which are all those sins, all those chapters of sins at the end of the book. So that's all summarized in there. When you explain, you elaborate, and you'll say, like the tongue and the stomach and the eyes, etc., etc. Al-aslu, you said, would you repeat the translation of that last line? Sure. Thumma, then, bayanu, clarity or clarification of ma'asi al-qalb, the sins of the heart, wal-jawarih, and the organs or the limbs, kal-lisani, like the tongue, wa ghayrihi, and other than it. That he, wa ghayrihi, goes back to al-lisan, the tongue. Like this, like the tongue and other than it, other than the tongue among the jawarih, the organs or limbs. Al-aslu, the origin, that's an important word to know. What are the root letters there? Hamza, Sad, Lam, Asl, origin, base, foundation. Al-aslu, the origin, that means the origin of this mukhtaSar, this summary that is jami', that is collecting and gathering. The origin of it is لِبَعْضِ الْفُقَهَاءِ الْحَضْرَمِيِّينَ. For بَعْضِ, some of al-fuqaha, the scholars of fiqh. Al-fuqaha, that's the plural of faqih. Faqih, with a ha at the end. What are the root letters? Fa, qaf, ha. Fiqh. The scholar of fiqh is called faqih. The plural of faqih is fuqaha. So that might be translated by some as jurists, or by some as merely scholars. Personally, I don't really find anything that's really a match for faqih. But usually when I just want to keep it easy for myself, I'd say jurists or scholars. Fiqh means comprehension. That's the linguistic meaning of it. And religiously, fiqh is that science of the detailed practical rules. So the scholar of that science is the faqih, and the plural of faqih is fuqaha. Al-aslu li ba'di al-fuqaha al-hadramiyyin. The origin is for some of the Hadrami fuqaha. Hadrami means one who's from Hadramaut. Hadramaut is a land in Al-Yemen. I want you to pay attention to the word ba'd here. It means some, S-O-M-E, and that includes one, and it means very often in Arabic language, one. It's usually translated as some, but it means very often one. And one of others is some. But in English, people don't usually use the word some to mean one. So that gets lost in the translation sometimes, in different things. You need to follow the context. If you hear someone translating from Arabic into English and he says some, and then as you listen, he's talking about someone, then you know that it meant one. Like what's here. So he says, Al-aslu li ba'di al-fuqaha al-hadramiyyin. The origin of this inclusive gathering, collecting summary, meaning the original book from which this gathering summary was taken, is لبعض الفقهاء الحضرميين. For, meaning by, is by. The original book is by some, meaning one, of the Hadrami fuqaha. Wahua, and he is, Hua here goes back to the word ba'd, and he, who, al-ba'd, that some. Wahua, and that ba'd, that some is, yani that someone is Abdullah ibn Hussein ibn Tahir. Abdullah ibn, son of, without the alif, because it's between two masculine names on the same line. Not at the beginning of the line, yani it's between two masculine names, not at the beginning of the line. So the alif is taken out. Abdullah ibn Hussein. When you read that, don't say Abdullah ibn. You keep going. Don't stop there. Abdullah ibn Hussein. Abdullah ibn Hussein ibn. Here, Husainin, ibn Husainin. If you were to stop here, Abdullah ibn Husainin, there's a tanween there. Ibn Husainin, that's if you stop. But if you keep going, you drop that tanween and you just keep the kasra and you keep going. Abdullah ibn Husayn ibn Tahir, drop the tanween. But if you stop, you don't even say the tanween anyway, but there would be a tanween there. The judgment is that there's a tanween there. Huwa Abdullah ibn Husayn ibn Tahir. That's who he is, that Hadrami faqih. And there could possibly stand to be a period here. Period. Thumma, then, or furthermore, dummina, made inclusive to it, added to it, included to it. But here, dummina, this is passive voice. That means here it means that the subject of the sentence is really the object of a verb. So the meaning is the book was made to be included, was made to include. Thumma dummina. Then it was made to include. Then added to it was ziyadatin kathira, many additions. So what kind of cases, what kind of additions, ziyadat, what ziyadat additions, min nafa'is al-masail, amongst the precious cases. Nafa'is is plural. The singular is nafisa. Nafisa, something precious. Nafa'is, the precious ones. So here, when you translate it, you actually lose something because the plural doesn't show up in the translation. Amongst precious cases, nafa'is, the precious ones of the masail, of the cases. Yani the cases, masail is plural, but the nafa'is, the precious is plural. The preciouses of the cases. Min nafa'is al-masail. That's because shaykh is an expert. So he knew how to pull all those pearls and gems and put them in his book. Ma'a hadfi ما ذكره في التصوف مع with حذف omission of ما what ذكره, he mentioned it. Who's he? Abdullah ibn Hussein ibn Tahir. So Abdullah ibn Hussein ibn Tahir, he had a book. The title of that book is Sulam al-Tawfiq, the ladder to success, or the ladder of success. It resembles this book that we're reading now very closely because it's the origin for this book. But the shaykh altered it. Actually, he improved it. He upgraded it. He saw that that book was actually good, but it needed some work. It had everything in general. The idea was there, but it needed some work. So he upgraded it. So, مع حذف ما ذكره في التصوف, with مع حذف, omission of ما, what, ذكره, he mentioned it. Who's the author of the original book? Right there, Abdullah ibn Hussein ibn Tahir. And the author of this book is Abdullah al-Harari, our shaykh, Shaykh Abdullah al-Harari, as we're going to say. His name's coming, actually. مع حذف, with omission of ما ذكره, what he mentioned it, ما ذكره, what he mentioned it, who? The author of the original book, while omitting some of what the author of the original book had mentioned in his original book. About what? Fit tasawwuf, about or in concerning Sufism. Because that's not obligatory knowledge, except some of it. وتغيير لبعض العبارات, and تغيير, alteration, changing. لبعض, of some of al-ibarat, the expressions. So he changed some sentences. He improved them. مما لا يؤدي إلى خلاف الموضوع. مما, among what? So that's a merger of two words there. مما. That's originally min, from ma, what? Min, mim, noon, min, ma, from what? Then they got blended and it became mimma, with a shadda on that mim. Wa taghyirin, and a change, some change, it's indefinite. Wa taghyir, and change, some change. Li ba'di al-ibarat, for some of the expressions. Mimma, among what? Yani such change. La yu'addi, does not lead to. Ila, la yu'addi, does not lead. Ila, to. Khilafi al-mawdu', conflicting with the subject, opposing the subject. Yani, he changed them in such a way that he didn't change the subject or go out of context or make it irrelevant. Rather, he improved that original book and made the original author have a great reward. I mean, inshallah, he certainly has a great reward. And he doesn't even know, inshallah. Allah knows if he knows. Allah knows, but yani, maybe he didn't suspect, I mean, when he was alive, that such a thing would happen, that there would come a great scholar and take his book and then improve on it, and then he gets that reward. وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ ما رجحه وقد نذكر, and we could mention, we might mention, وقد نذكر. So qad here promotes the meaning of possibility with this verb nadhkur, without me going into details. It promotes the meaning of possibility, ihtimal. وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ, and we might mention مَا رَجَّحَهُ, what? بَعْضٌ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاء, some of the fuqaha, رَجَّحَهُ, preponderated, deemed heavy, what they deemed weighty. At-tarjih refers to one pan of a scale sinking because it's heavier than the other pan. That's tarjih. That's literally is tarjih. So if you have a scale and both pans are equal, then there's no tarjih. When some weight gets put into one, then the heavy one is the tarjih. That's the tarjih. So he says, وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ, we might mention مَا رَجَّحَهُ بَعْضٌ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاء, what preponderated it some of the faqihs. Now, here, قَدْ نَذْكُرُ, what I translated for you is what comes to mind. But it's possible in Arabic language that the shaykh's statement here, وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ, is not for possibility, but for verification, actually. وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ, it could mean we have mentioned. Like Allah says, قَدْ يَعْلَمُ اللَّهُ. It means Allah does indeed know. And the Shaykh did mention. So take that. وَقَدْ نَذْكُرُ مَا رَجَّحَهُ بَعْضٌ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ, and we could mention what preponderated it. رَجَّحَهُ, رَجَّحَ, preponderated who, it. Who did that? بَعْض, some. بَعْضٌ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ, some of the faqihs did that preponderating of it. Which fuqaha? al-Shafi'iyin, Shafi'i fuqaha. Like who? Kal-Bulqini, like al-Bulqini. So here, anyone who knows who those Shafi'is are and the ranks of their scholars, he knows that al-Bulqini is one who, yani, very few are higher than him or as strong as he is, higher than an-Nawawi al-Bulqini. And in this, brothers and sisters, there's a sign that the Shaykh himself is at the least at the level of a preponderator. Because how did he know which one is preponderant? Why did he choose what al-Bulqini preponderated as opposed to what someone else preponderated? Because he's a preponderator himself who knows, and he knows, for example, that al-Bulqini, he knows what he's doing. Al-Bulqini, I like his style. Yeah. I'm like al-Bulqini, Shaykh yani. Shaykh is like al-Bulqini. If there's madhabs in the Shafi'i madhab, then Shaykh is on the madhab of al-Bulqini. As a preponderator. And I'm saying at the least, we believe he's higher than a preponderator. May Allah have mercy on him. لِتَضْعِيفِ مَا فِي الْأَصْلِ, for the weakening, لِتَضْعِيف, the weakening, deeming weak, of مَا فِي الْأَصْلِ, what is in the original book. Like what? Like, we won't talk about that now. And so, that fa is conjunction. So, thus, it has a lot of meaning, this fa. And the context of the statements pull out the various meanings that fa could have, various usages. Here, for now, it's keeping the flow. فَيَنْبَغِي, so should be. يَنْبَغِي, should be, should, it should. فَيَنْبَغِي, it should be, or what should. Should, يَنْبَغِي here is a verb. I don't think should in English is a verb. يَنْبَغِي, it should, what should, عِنَايَتُهُ, its heed should be. Should be, then, is the verb here. يَنْبَغِي, should be. فَيَنْبَغِي, so there should be what? عِنَايَتُهُ, bihi, one's heed for it. One's heed of it. Inayah is the heed. Yani, inayah is the heed. Inayah is the heed. Inayatuhu, his heed. Who? One, one's heed, the student. Inayatuhu bihi, of it, bihi, of what? Now, in Arabic, it's a very important rule if you're studying Arabic, if you're trying to understand Arabic. Whenever you come across these pronouns, you have to know what they go back to. That's called al-marji'. Marji', the place of returning, or what they call in English, the pronoun has the antecedent. What they call in English the antecedent, the thing the pronoun goes back to. So what's the antecedent? Bihi, of what? فَيَنْبَغِي عِنَايَتُهُ, so should be, there should be his, meaning one's, heed of it, of what? Of I say mukhtaSar, of that mukhtaSar, that summary, jami', that inclusive summary, yani the book. And Allah knows best about if that pronoun could go back to something else, even something implied like the knowledge. But originally in Arabic, you're not supposed to imply originally. You imply if there's evidence to imply. So then if there's no evidence to imply, or even if there is evidence to imply, if you can not imply and actually say what's there, that's better. That's always better. فَيَنْبَغِي عِنَايَتُهُ بِهِ, so should be, there should be عِنَايَتُهُ, one's heed, bihi, of it, of, I say, that mukhtaSar, that summary. Wallahu a'lam, Allah knows best. لِيُقْبَلَ عَمَلُهُ, liyuqbala, so yuqbal, so that would be accepted, amaluhu, his deeds, so that his deeds would be accepted. You see, in Arabic, the verb comes before the noun frequently, so that's why I translate like that sometimes, just trying to be very literal. In English, you can put the verb in front of the noun, but it's not as frequent. Like you can say, said Sam, said Sam, said Fred. You can say that, that's valid. You don't have to say Sam said. But that's older also. So depending on how old you are, when you were learning how to read as a child, those books were saying, said Jane, not Jane said. And alhamdulillah that I caught that. I think now they don't learn like that. And their English is weaker now. People's English is weaker now. Asmayna, we named it. That summary, that mukhtaSar. Asmaynahu, we named it. Who's we? The shaykh himself. He's referring to himself. We named it Asmaynahu mukhtaSar Abdillahi al-Harari, the summary of Abdullah al-Harari, that's his name. Al-Kafil, that summary has a description. Al-Kafil, the guarantor, the guaranteer, the one who guarantees. That's not a verb, that's an adjective. The guarantor. Al-Kafila bi'ilmi din, the guarantor of the religious knowledge. What religious knowledge? Al-Daruri, the necessary religious knowledge. So we named it the summary of Abdullah al-Harari, the guarantor of the necessary religious knowledge. I think we should stop there. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.